On December 2nd, 2025, I shot out some interview questions to Ponaners about the development history of his game, Aniwars Call the Void. This video will document those questions as well as the answers I received through the form of a Google document. The link to that can be found in the video description. I explained to Ponaners ahead of time that I'd be using this information in my Indie Grabbag video, but I wanted to release this separately because I felt it'd be shitty to withhold this info until that video's done. This video is being released with his awareness and consent, and I want to disclaim that this video isn't sponsored or anything. I make videos on this site currently as a hobby, and I'm posting this for the sake of historical preservation. That, and because the idea of people having to cite my channel in their videos just sounds really funny. I don't know if I'll have to do any other Q&A videos like this for my Indie Grabbag video, but if I do, I'll release them in a similar format to this one. If you have any other questions you want to go and ask Ponaners about his game, you can reach him on his Discord server, which is also linked in the description. With that out of the way, here's what I asked Ponaners about his game. What drew you towards making a turn-based strategy game in the style of Advance Wars? We started Aniwars' development during the summer of 2020. At the time, me and my cousin, who was the programmer, sat outside and brainstormed a mobile PvP game in the style of Advance Wars, but instead featured waifus like other gachas. Yes, Aniwars was initially supposed to be a mobile PvP waifu gacha. We were like that. We were also comically delusional when it came to the development time, thinking we would be able to get a playable product out there before Christmas. It's like we uttered the phrase before Christmas and then the monkey's paw curled. 5 years later, the game came out in early access, basically a month before Christmas. The reason we specifically chose Advance Wars as an inspiration was because they hadn't made any new games in that series for like 15 years at that point. We thought we could get in there and swipe up an audience that hadn't been satisfied in a while, as well as make a better PvP experience than the current Advance Wars versions. Over the coming years, we would realize the foolishness of this logic. We weren't the only ones with that idea. Nintendo announced their Advance Wars reboot camp a couple of months later. We were cooked, and this was not the last time we got cooked. You could say Aniwars started from a place of cynical greed in retrospect. Over time, it evolved into something much greater, both because of passion and necessity. What was it like putting together your own development team? Did you know the other team members before starting this project, or did you have to seek them out? The Aniwars team is my family, literally. My father, Rockstar, does the music and sound design, and my cousin, Calamist, does the programming and also operates as the studio's CEO. Were there any major issues or roadblocks during development of Aniwars Call the Void that you would like to share with the internet for historical purposes? There have been a lot of issues and roadblocks we've encountered over the game's development. At least they'll make for an interesting / funny story now. The first issue is that we started off wanting to make a PvP game. The problem with this is that we wanted to make a fast-paced strategy PvP for mobile devices in the form of a Wars-like, which is oxymoronic. The PvP in those games is time-consuming by design, which we would soon find out. We twisted ourselves into a pretzel trying to come up with ways to speed up the gameplay, and we kind of succeeded. But the game just wasn't that fun even after putting in an ungodly amount of time and effort into making the PvP work in the first place. Calamist spent years making the game function for PvP, even making an anti-cheat. After several months of development, we decided to completely scrap the mobile version of the game, due to monetization being basically impossible if I recall correctly. This meant that all those months of programming for the game to work on iOS went down the toilet, and this is not the last time this has happened. While we were making a PvP game, we also wanted to create a PvE skirmish mode where the players could try new strategies against the AI. This was in part to have a failsafe for a slow launch, so players would have something to do if matchmaking was slow. Making the AI function properly while also maintaining the game's anti-cheat made things exponentially more complicated. The game was neither fully focused on PvP or PvE, and it showed. To this day, the enemy AI has been one of the main time sinks for the game's development. It is an incredibly complex system, especially in regards to all the features and strategic maneuvers that are possible in Aniwars today. It is also what makes the game so good now, with an incredibly competent enemy AI that even surprises us devs to this day. Sometimes it does something we think is just stupid, or an AI bug, for it to then pull off an insane 4D chess maneuver. It still needs some polish though. Anyways, we managed to hold up morale through the hope of our Kickstarter. We thought that the game being Advance Wars but PvP but also with waifus would draw in enough interest through sheer novelty. I had amassed quite a decent following on Twitter at that point too, thinking it would be able to give us enough of an initial push to gain proper attention and support through the Kickstarter algorithm. Days before we launched our Kickstarter, however, another game called Warside launched theirs. They were a true-to-form Advance Wars-like, pixel art aesthetics and all, so there went our novelty. After we launched our Kickstarter, we saw that people were willing to support, but not really for the right reasons. They wanted to support the Kickstarter not because they were interested in Aniwars' potential gameplay, but because they were interested in the waifus. In retrospect, this is not surprising at all, given that basically all the art I made to promote the game was borderline NSFW thirst traps on Twitter. The gameplay itself got barely any traction. The reception to the Kickstarter was also quite lukewarm. We set a goal of 20,000 euros, thinking we would be able to breeze past this goal if the Kickstarter went well, which by all metrics we thought it would during pre-launch. We basically reached the halfway point in a month, if I recall correctly. The one question we got the most on our then recently launched Discord channel was, will there be PvE, and will there be a campaign? Basically zero interest in the PvP, not even from the Kickstarter supporters. So there we were, 3 years of development, an underperforming Kickstarter, a PvP game on the way that would 100% be dead on arrival, and our hopes nearly crushed. The day after the Kickstarter's launch, we discussed if it would be better to just focus on PvE. Then we came to a horrifying realization. If the Kickstarter succeeded, we would be stuck on a 20,000 euro shoestring budget over who knows how many more years of development, not accounting for the time and money needed to actually deliver all the Kickstarter rewards, which would have been significant. All this to deliver a PvP game that would not succeed. So that day we decided to go radio silent. No more promotion of the Kickstarter on any socials. At this point it was a liability in the worst possible way. During this time we did however do a public playtest of the game. Not for the PvP version, but the PvE skirmish version. It was a lot of fun watching players struggle against the AI on live streams, and we realized that there was some potential there. After this point, we decided to completely scrap all the work that had gone into the PvP and multiplayer, and focus exclusively on turning Aniwars into a really fun PvE experience. 2 years of programming development time went down the toilet. Even though the AI had caused a lot of mental anguish for Calibist, it had at this point become the key part to our only hope for the game and our future as game developers. The split in development attention that was caused through our errors in scope was what led us to turn the game into a kick-ass, one-of-a-kind roguelike in the end. That being said, this was the worst period of Aniwars' development. Since then, in comparison, the game's development has been pretty smooth sailing, all things considered. Sure, we've had some other unfortunate timings here and there, both with Warside and Wargroove 2 launching before us, as well as Eben McMillan's Mugenics coming up in February, which I see as the closest thing we have to an actual competitor when it comes to the type of roguelike Aniwars is. Personally, I'm not too concerned about it though. I think our games have vastly different target audiences, and that Aniwars has a lot to offer that no other game currently has. Now it's only a matter of breaking through the noise, so to speak. Oh, and there was also some mild panic before launch due to how slow Steam support is when answering support tickets. Not blaming them though, they are very understaffed. We didn't have a playable version uploaded on Steam until less than a week before launch because of a library asset issue that took over 3 weeks to fix. Lesson here is to make sure to start the greenlight process at least 3 months before launch. The amount of anxiety and frustration this process generated for the team was unironically worse than the launch of the game itself. We got lucky that our early access launch went as smoothly as it did. Do you have any previous game development experience before working on Aniwars Call the Void? If not, what was it like taking on your first gaming project? I studied game development for 4 years at the University of Hovde. I worked on smaller projects over some courses, so I was familiar with many parts of the game development process, at least when it came to making assets. Would you say you need software development experience before spearheading a team project like this, or do you just need to find the right people for the job? I have absolutely zero experience with software development. That all goes to Calibist. What I would say is that if you're gonna start a team project like this, you would need at least one person who is either capable or willing to become capable in it. Do the character designs in Aniwars predate the game's development, or were they just conceived specifically for this project? OCs are kind of a common thing in online spaces, so I'm just curious if there's any history behind these characters. All of Aniwars' designs were made specifically for Aniwars. All lore for the characters had to be made for the game itself. Ironically, the Kickstarter played a key role in us brainstorming most of the game's lore. If you want an interesting design side note, a lot of early character designs were inspired by Last Exile, one of the first anime I watched. It has since evolved into its own thing. What future updates can players look forward to in this early access game, and what ideas had to be scrapped during development? We're currently working on a roadmap. That being said, what we plan on adding aside from essentials like unlockables and achievements is more commanders, units, items, map interactives, events, the stratagem system, a hard mode, and then at last, the Void faction. Finally, the subtitle of this game will make sense. One thing we scrapped for the current version of Aniwars is vehicle units. We realized that none of them, except for the Punk's Rider, fit into the game's style and especially the battle screens. Rest in peace, Breach Tank and Warp Tank. They're now the Breacher and the Warp Droid. Are there any plans to add proper controller support to this game? It's a little awkward moving around a mouse cursor with a thumbstick, even on the Steam Deck. You would have to ask Calamus for confirmation on this, but not as of now from what I can recall. We'll see how things change depending on the game's success. Of course, it would be nice to add controller support, we're not necessarily against it, but it would just take a lot of time we currently do not have. What would you say were your biggest lessons when making Aniwars, and do you have any advice for those looking to make their own game? Limit your scope. When you think you've limited it, limit it again. Find a fun, simple mechanic and build from there. Don't do what we did. Do some small projects and see where that takes you. Your dream project can wait. The fact we're even here at this point with a game people seem to really enjoy is through a combination of sheer luck, synchronicity, and desperate tenacity.